Because you never know what life is gonna take you, and you can't change where you've been.
Hi, I'm Christine, and thank you so much for signing up for your free gift. If you did, it probably means you're struggling with the questions, who am I, what do I want, and how do I get it? I call these the questions of the 20s triangle, and they were the questions I was so desperately trying to answer in my 20s. And since 2004, I've been working as a life coach, author, and speaker, totally committed to helping people answer those questions. There was one night on my bathroom floor where everything in my life was going wrong, and in that moment I made a promise that if I figured my way out of my own 20-something crisis, I would somehow help other people do the same. And that's what I'm here to help you do. You will get through this, I assure you, and you will probably learn so much along the way, and it's actually a time to get really excited about. So in this video, I'm going to answer some of the questions I commonly receive about the whole 20-something experience that's also called the quarter life crisis. So sit back, relax, take some notes, and we'll begin. So a 20-something crisis, which is also called a quarter life crisis, is any time in our 20s or even 30s where we hit a wall, where life isn't going like we planned, where we've had a lot of what I call expectation hangovers, which the desired results that we wanted weren't met, or unexpected things happen. Life throws us a lot of curveballs. We might be judging ourselves as failures in certain aspects of our life, like our career, our relationships, finances, health, whatever it is. And the word crisis, if you look it up in the dictionary, doesn't say big, huge catastrophe. It actually says crossroads. So a 20-something crisis is when we're at a crossroads, when we're at an in-between place. We're in between who we were as children, as adolescents, as sons or daughters, and who we are going to be as adults. And it's a time in life when a lot of questions come up. So basically, it's a time of confusion that no one really prepares us for, and it's a really, really normal experience. So a 20-something crisis happens for a couple of reasons. First of all, there are totally unrealistic expectations placed on 20-somethings. Really, almost by the time you graduate college, you think you're supposed to know what to do for the rest of your life. You think you're supposed to be married by a certain age, have kids by a certain age, make a certain amount of money by a certain age. Who says? So this unbelievable amount of pressure that we feel in our 20s and 30s to be and do and have is one of the main things that fuels this whole 20-something crisis, because we're all in panic. It's like a race to the finish line of figuring out our lives. So that's the first reason. The second reason is a little more scientific. Recent research has shown that our brain doesn't even fully form until we're about 30 years old. So in our 20s, we're still dominated more by the right hemisphere of our brain, which is all about emotion. Imagine that, driven by emotion when you're trying to make all these rational, logical decisions. So if you're having trouble making decisions or choices in your life, a lot of that is because your brain is still forming. So give yourself some time. And the third reason is that a lot of our psychological issues from our childhood or our teenage years that we haven't really dealt with start to come up in our 20s. So not only are we dealing with the life we're living now, but even unconsciously we're trying to deal with the life that we lived before. So emotionally, it can be a really confusing time as well. Here's the good news. The 20s present a great opportunity for transformation. It's like a doorway into all this personal growth that you can walk through right now. You can learn so much about yourself before you have kids and spouses and aging parents and mortgages and jobs and businesses that you have to uphold. So you can get excited about your 20-something crisis. This is not a disease that you're stuck with. This is a normal opportunity, and you can walk through that doorway and start to transform your experience. Boy, did I ever have a 20-something crisis. It started with my career. Ever since I was in pretty much middle school, I was addicted to achieving. I was desperately insecure, and so the way I compensated for that is I would just do. And so I thought I needed to be very, very successful at a very young age, because that's how I thought I'd get my self-worth. So I went to college, I studied, I double majored, I graduated in 3.5 years. I got a 3.9 GPA, and I share that with you because after college, no one ever asked what my GPA was. And I drove out to Hollywood ready to change the world and be a big-time producer and finally feel good about myself. So I started off at an agency. I was an assistant answering phones, and I worked my way up, and I really wasn't liking it along the way, but I lived in when-thens. When I get promoted, then I'll be happy. When I make a certain amount of money, then I'll really like this job. I was always living for the future. So the future came, I got the big promotion, I was sitting in my big Hollywood office with my business cards and my fancy suits and going to all the award shows and hanging out with celebrities. Guess what? Still miserable. Still insecure, still looking for something to make me happy. So I spent about a year just stressed out, not liking what I was doing, and finally I had to quit. I just couldn't take it anymore. And when I quit for a week, I felt liberated. And then I felt awful again because without a big job and without a big career, who was I? I had nothing to define myself. So I went through 3 years of trying all these different things. I was a personal trainer, I was a nutritionist, I was a hand model because I lived in LA, and in LA you can do things like that. I worked for a real estate agent, I worked for a marketing firm. I was throwing noodles against walls, seeing what could stick, and nothing was working. So that was my career. Then add to that, I fell in love. And I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, and we ended up getting engaged, and I thought, well, maybe that's what I'm destined to do. I'm 27 at the time. I'm destined to become a wife and a mother. I had the career. Maybe I'm moving on to something else. Well, 6 months before my wedding, my fiance called it off. He said he loved me, but he didn't want to marry me. So there I was, no career, just thought I lost the love of my life. Oh, and guess what? I was terribly in debt because I was trying to keep up my Hollywood lifestyle, and I was dealing with health issues from stressing myself out for years. So by 28, I had no money, no job, no guy, and was right knee-deep in the middle of a quarter-life crisis. So yes, I can relate. So you're having a 20-something crisis where you're really having trouble making decisions. That's one of the key indicators that you just don't know where you are in your life. You also know you're having one when you're thinking about making a big change and you're unsure about it. Or when you were doing things a certain way and they don't seem to be working anymore. You also may be experiencing a lot more anxiety than you have in the past, a lot more sadness, maybe even a little depression than you have in the past. Or you might be noticing that you're overdoing something, overeating, overdrinking, overdoing, trying to overcompensate for this angst that you're having. Another thing I hear a lot and that I experience myself is that nothing feels dreadfully wrong, but nothing feels quite right either. It's almost like the beginning of a flu when you're like, uh-oh, I kind of feel something coming. I feel these symptoms coming on. I'm not sure what it is. So if you're a little confused, if you're lost, if you're having trouble making decisions, or you're on the brink of change or contemplating a change, you're probably having a 20-something crisis. Welcome to the club. Common coping skills that usually don't work are things like looking for something outside of you to make you feel better. A new job, a new boyfriend or girlfriend, a new outfit, a new city, a new car, just something external is one of the common coping skills. Because let's face it, in our 20s, when stuff's coming up and we're in this 20-something crisis, we just want to feel better. So we're looking for quick fixes. Another coping skill I see a lot is talking about the same thing over and over and over and over. Sitting in our problems, talking about our friends with them over and again, and not really doing anything differently about it. It's being more reactive to our lives rather than proactive with our lives. Another coping skill that I see is haphazard decisions, quick decisions, or agonizing for days or weeks or even months about our decision, and coping by either trying to change it too quickly or not doing anything at all, just sitting around in paralysis. A final one that I see oftentimes is going to outside people for an answer, be it our parents or our peers or whoever it is, looking for somebody to give us a solution rather than finding the answers inside. And one of the things I'm committed to doing is teaching you how I found my own answers inside so that you can find those answers for yourself and you can be sure and you can be clear that the direction you're going in is really the direction you want and not something someone else wants for you. Should you talk about what you're going through with your friends and family? Yes and no. It's really, really great to talk about what we're experiencing, but more in a cathartic way, not in a spinning around and talking about the same story over and over and over again. So I see two things. I see a lot of 20-somethings and 30-somethings too, keeping a lot inside. Putting on this mask that's like, yeah, I have it all figured out, I have the job, I have the relationship, whatever, and inside experiencing so much turmoil. So if you're somebody that usually likes sweep things under the rug and keeps things to yourself and likes to look good, you are somebody that should probably talk about it with other people. Now, on the other hand, if you're somebody that likes to sit around and talk about your problems all day long and you don't do much about it, then my encouragement would be more do things about your problems rather than just sitting around talking about them. I recommend making a pact with your friends that says, okay, listen, if you hear me talk about the same thing again without committing to one proactive action step, please stop me because I don't want to just be a storyteller anymore. Now, when it comes to your family, that's also a yes or no question. Our families are great, and they also see us through their eyes of perception that they've always looked at us throughout our entire lives. So our families can be incredibly supportive, and they can be incredibly judgmental as well. Let's face it, that's what families do. So you might want to think about how much you want to share with your family and also filter the information and feedback you're getting, because your 20s are really your time to define you, who you are independent from your family and even your friends. A quarter-life crisis or a 20-something crisis does not have to happen in your 20s. For a lot of people, it hits later in life, in your 30s even. A lot of times we can spend our 20s just doing, and then by the time we hit 30, we're like, whoa, I wasn't really liking anything I was doing. So there's really no timeline on it. So overcoming your 20-something crisis basically boils down to one thing. First of all, you have to go through it. All of my clients come to me and they're like, Christine, I want to get out of this. I want to feel better. Help me fix it. This is awful. And I say to them, yeah, we'll get there. You will, but we can't go around it or over it or underneath it or to the right or to the left. We have to go right through it. And it's hard. It can be painful at times. But when you go through your 20-something crisis, by going through the emotions of it, by looking at the beliefs, by excavating your expectation hangovers, you will learn so much about yourself, so much about the other people in your life, and so much about what you really want to do. And after my clients are with me for a while, it's almost like they forget that they were even in a 20-something crisis because they're starting to get the learnings and they're starting to feel better about themselves and they're answering the most important question, which is, who am I? Because oftentimes we think that overcoming a crisis is starting with the question, how do I get what I want? But that's backwards. We have to start with, who am I really? And that's what I'm committed to helping you figure out. And if you really want to know if you're having a 20-something crisis and how bad your crisis is, we have a quiz for you. So just go to the homepage of the website and click on the button that says, Take the 20-something crisis quiz, and you can diagnose yourself.